Hi everyone, I hope you're well. I am here with Kate Morris today, who's one of our Supermums alumni that graduated 3 years ago. And so she's going to be sharing a little bit about her journey with us about why she chose the Salesforce career, why she chose Supermums, what she's doing now, and that journey that you've been on. So welcome, Kate. Thank you for joining us today.
No, well, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to chat to you about today about my journey.
Oh, no, it's great. So tell us, why did you decide to launch a Salesforce career? What were you doing before, and what made you think that you could do this?
Yeah. So I previously to working in Salesforce, I worked in education. So I was in childcare. I ran our village preschool. So I didn't fall into it. That's probably the wrong thing to say from an education perspective. But I have a son. He's now 10. And when I had him, I realized quite quickly that juggling work with having a child is pretty tough. So I looked at my options and I qualified as a childminder. But my son was small so that I could stay at home as much as possible because I looked at the costs of going back to work and putting my son in education or in childcare at all, and I would have come out with nothing basically at the end of the month. So I requalified as a childminder. I spent a couple of years at home with him and looking after children in the house. And when my son was old enough to go to preschool, he went to our local village preschool and they needed a manager or they were going to close basically. So they didn't have a manager. Their manager went on maternity leave and decided that she wasn't going to come back. And I kind of took the leap to kind of step in. And I was then there. So I was there for a year, but it ended up there for 5 years.
Oh,
In
wow.
So yeah, so that was really good. So I loved doing that. And it worked really well with obviously having my child when he was small and he's now at school. So it's all a little bit easier. And I kind of got to the point where I had kind of shifted career to fit around childcare, but I just still didn't really know what I wanted to do. I felt that I had kind of done everything that I could within the role that I was in, unless I wanted to re-qualify and become a teacher and work within a school as a teacher or move into more running like a day nursery. I just felt like I'd kind of given up everything that I could kind of within the role that I was in. And for me, my child was old enough where he was starting to get older and less reliant on me. He was at school and kind of that kind of benefits of me working at preschool were kind of like, okay, well they it was a good thing at the time, but now actually I want something for me and I want to kind of get my hands into something, just have like a total refresh and kind of get my hands into something totally different. And for me, what I was looking for to move into was something where I could progress, but not necessarily have to progress into management. I'd done management. I've been a manager for 6 years at the preschool by the time I'd left there. And all of the options that I looked at, if I wanted to progress my career, would be to have naturally gone into kind of people management. And as much as I liked people management, I just kind of wanted to kind of get away from that and just look at like other things really. And that's how I found Salesforce and the options that it gives you. You can specialize in, you obviously learn the foundations, but then you find what you enjoy and you find a niche and you can kind of explore that and get really, really kind of passionate about one thing or one cloud or one type of app or things like that. There's so much to learn. You don't just have to kind of stick with the basics. You can learn as you want and you can specialize as you want. And there were lots of different like career progression options that didn't necessarily involve people management.
Yeah, yeah. And so how did you find out about Salesforce as an option?
So my husband's a super dad. So my
Which came
husband
first?
Yes, so so actually my husband requalified just before COVID. I think he was the 2018 or 2019 cohort. I think maybe the 2018, started in 2018, finished in 2019. And previously one of my other very good friends was a super mum as well. So she was one of your first cohorts.
Oh,
My friend had done it and then she persuaded my husband to do it. And then we kind of saw how successful and how well she had been and kind of enjoyed it. And then so I see my friend go through it and do it, and then I see my husband go through the Supermums course and love it and kind of the career options that he got on the back of it. So I just thought, oh, do you know what? COVID was really hard for education. COVID was really hard for everybody.
yeah.
And but that kind of really made me really think, right, now's the time. Like I've done what I need to do. I've done my time now. I'm ready to kind of look for something else. So post-COVID, I think it was a good time for reflection, and decided that that was the right time for me to kind of start looking for something else. And happened to be, had a little look at Supermums, and what drew me to Supermums, obviously my husband doing it as well, but I had no experience with Salesforce. I didn't really understand what it did, didn't really understand kind of how it worked. And my husband was like, oh yeah, you could just do it on Trailhead. Trailhead's a great platform and you can learn it all on there. But I sat down and I tried to do it and it just wasn't sinking in.
Mm.
I had to work full time. So I was re-qualifying while working full time.
Yeah.
So I would come home in the evening and then try and sit and do some trailheads, and it just wouldn't go in. I just couldn't get it to stick.
Your learning style. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it just didn't. And I think because I'd never used Salesforce before, I didn't understand it. So I didn't really understand, like from an education perspective, we didn't use it. So I'd never been an end user of Salesforce to kind of even see it from an end user's perspective.
Yeah.
So I found that really hard to get my head around it and to do the trailheads. And I was doing the trailheads, but I was literally just following the instructions and I was completing them. But I'd come to do it that week, like a couple of days later, and it just wasn't sticking in my brain.
Mm.
So I said to my husband, this learning style is not working for me if I really want to do this. For
Mm.
me personally, a learning style where I have people around me that I can ask questions. I love to ask questions. I like to know the whys of things. So for me to have a mentor, and as well having a weekly session with somebody who was teaching us and a group of people who our cohort was really great. We had a WhatsApp group.
Mhm.
There are a couple of people in our cohort who were working in Salesforce. They were retraining as part of their job so they could understand it. So I could ask them questions as well from an end user perspective.
Okay. Yeah.
So I just found that really helpful for me. And it gave me the focus that I needed. I don't think well, actually, it just gave me the accountability. So we paid for the course. So for me, I was like, right, I'm investing this in me. I need to now make sure that I'm committing to it.
Yeah.
And it gave me that kind of accountability to make sure that I did it. I think if I'd have just potted along with the trailheads, probably wouldn't have really ever come to it. But because I invested in myself and what I wanted to do, I felt like that was holding me accountable for making sure that I kind of saw it through, really.
Oh, no, that's really good. And actually, some people need that and some people don't, right? I'm really big admiration for people that are very self-motivated to crack through it. But it's that whole package that you mentioned. And Kate, you mentioned that you work full time, and we absolutely have had some people go through the course, but there is 16 hours a week of study. So how did you structure that around your full-time job?
Just got it done. I just was really, I worked out a timeline. So we kind of had a timeline at the beginning of our course with like school holidays and things like that. And for me, I couldn't join the classes live. I had to do them in the evening because I was working full time. I worked in education, and anything could change daily in terms of, so I tried to plan it so that I was at home and I could be off on those. I'd asked for the day off, but with ratios and childcare and all of those things, it just never really worked out. So I just was like, okay, I'm just going to have to fit this into my personal life. And I just made a decision that I was just going to knuckle down and just get it done. So I just tried to really kind of come home, decompress from work, have dinner, like I put my child to bed and kind of do that, and then kind of do an hour of kind of working through the trailheads, working on the work. And once I'd got my head around it, I actually really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed kind of the learning aspect of it and the progression that you kind of follow with the course in terms of like where you start and what the capabilities that you start to get to kind of do. I really enjoyed it. So I kind of was then wanting to it kind of spurred me to want to do more.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that I really enjoyed as well with the course is the mix of not just the trainer that we had at the time, but we had specialists, we had people who were working within the industry come in and we could really ask them questions as well. So, and that just again spurred me on, just gave me a different view of things to help me kind of keep motivated to just keep kind of getting up. So I'd get up early on a Saturday and I just ring fence that time on a Saturday morning. My husband took my child to football and I was like, right, while you're at football, I'm going to do my lesson. I'm going to do my lesson from the weekend and then just try and get as much done as I can before they came home, and just did it. I just fit it in. It just kind of worked.
Good. Well, that's awesome. And it's having that dedication to it. And you'll be pleased to know that we have an evening course now that people can attend as well. So Absolutely. We've had people that watch it on replay, like you don't need to turn up live, but there is a 6 p.m. course for anybody in the UK that wants to be on that one. So
Yeah,
it's a bit
good.
easier.
Yeah, and I think it was hard because I think the way that the mentors us, the way that your like learning is structured with mentors really helped me. Like I didn't feel like I was missing out because I still had my WhatsApp group where I could reach out and speak to the people who were on my cohort. I
Yeah.
had my trainer who I could reach out to, who I could email, who I could speak to. I had my mentor who I had a weekly call with them.
Yeah.
And so it didn't feel like although I wasn't there live, I still had that support. It didn't feel like I was missing out on that kind of session, if that makes sense, because I could still go through it with my mentor or my trainer at the time.
Good. And do you discuss Salesforce over dinner now with your husband?
Sometimes my husband's a little as I say, he's a bit further ahead than me. So if I'm really stuck on something, normally, so I'm sat upstairs in the office upstairs and he's in an office downstairs. And if I'm really stuck, he hears me creep down the stairs with my laptop. I'm like, can I just ask you a quick question? He's like, no, you can't ask me a question. But it's quite good to like bounce like ideas. I had like just a solution I needed to come up with a customer. And we went out for a walk with the dog the other day, and I was like, "Oh, can I just sound this out with you? Can I just run it through?" And it was quite nice just to be able to have that
Yeah.
sound or just to say, "Does this make sense? Is this what I like? Is this what I should be doing?"
Yeah.
So, yeah, so it's quite good. And it was quite nice to have somebody to go to World Tour with as well. This was the first year that my husband this year had been to Salesforce World Tour, and we got to go together, which was nice.
Oh, that's lovely. It's nice seeing they've got quite a few husbands and wives that have come through the program actually, and it's lovely seeing them come together, as long as it doesn't consume your life.
Yeah, luckily for us, we've worked together before, so we
Oh,
met at work. So we kind
yeah,
of we met at a previous job, and we actually work in the same consultancy company now. So we actually work in the same consultancy company now, and
awesome.
on totally different teams. So, but yeah, we're used to working together. It's fine.
I love that. Absolutely love that. So as we mentioned earlier, it's 3 years. Can you remember how you got your job? I mean, did you go straight into the company where you're
No,
part?
so I didn't know. I was really lucky, to be honest. Was I knew that I needed to start looking for work, but making that move from my current job that was like my safety blanket, my security, moving into something that was totally different was it felt really uncomfortable for me. And I was just a bit nervous about it. My husband was like, just apply for jobs, apply for jobs. And I was a bit nervous about it. So what I did was I actually just updated my LinkedIn profile to looking for work. And I was just kind of like browsing on there. And actually, my previous employer had employed a Super Mums alumni, and he was looking for somebody. And I think he was just looking through the Super Mums like connections and kind of found me on there and just messaged me like, "Hey, I see you're open looking for work, and you're a Super Mum. I've employed a Super Mum before. Like, can we have a chat?" And it kind of just went from there. So it definitely was through the Super Mums network that I was able to find my first job within the ecosystem. And as I say, I was just really lucky at the time that my previous employer was just looking through the network, looking for people who were employed, and I kind of popped up really.
Oh, really? So the second one approached you and headhunted you as well.
So the second one, so the consultancy company that I work for now, no, I applied for them because my husband works here at the consultancy company I work for, and I knew that they were expanding, they were moving and creating a new team
Mhm.
internally, and the consultancy company that I originally worked for, it was a really great start for me. It was quite a small consultancy. There were only three of us, four of us that kind of worked there. And it gave me that kind of reassurance moving into the ecosystem that like I could go at my own pace. The projects weren't too big. I got to know my customers really, really well. And I kind of just really got my confidence after about a year and a half of being there. I kind of wanted a bit more. I kind of wanted to know about what other roles, because that's what ultimately why I got into the ecosystem, was to look at all of the other roles that come into making up a consultancy company or a project team. So like project management and things like that. And the consultancy that are at, we just didn't have anybody that was doing those things. So I was looking to move to a bigger consultancy to look at different clouds, to see what kind of interested me, and looking at like different roles that were in a consultancy, like project manager and delivery director and all those kinds of different roles. I never really looked, I didn't really know what they looked like or what they did. So I was just looking to take that kind of next step up to a bigger consultancy, just to really kind of understand people's like roles and responsibilities so that I could look to see what I wanted to do.
Fantastic. So can you just bring it to life for people listening? What does a day-to-day look like for you? And you talked about a niche earlier. Like, have you carved out a niche for yourself?
Yeah, so day to day, so I work for a consultancy company at the minute. So I currently am on the managed service and fast start squad. So what that looks like for me is I have a mixture of projects. So I manage roughly between like 10 to 13 projects at a time. And they're a mixture of new implementations. So generally the fast starts for us are greenfield, so never had Salesforce before, haven't got a system, and are looking to implement either sales service, cloud, kind of basic, like quite a small project just to get people utilizing Salesforce. And then we have other project teams that are kind of managing bigger projects. And on the back of all of our projects, we sell managed service. So kind of monthly, we do monthly support for customers where they have a point of contact where if they need a new user adding, or they want some reports building, or they need anything like that, they can come to that specific point of contact. And I'm there to help them. So I'm just an extension basically of their team, but I just work at Ignyto, the consultancy company, instead of working for them.
Yeah.
So day to day, it can be anything from, so today I've been building new fields for one of my customers. I've been building some automations for some of my customers. You mentioned what have I kind of gone into as a niche, so Pardot, which is like marketing cloud account engagement.
Yeah.
None of my team knew how to do that. And I kind of piped up and said, oh, I'd be quite interested, because we had a lot of marketing cloud and accounting at Pardot customers coming through managed service. And my manager said, okay, well, we've got a lot of managed service customers we're implementing a lot of Pardot as part of projects, and those projects are going to need managed service. So somebody needs to upskill. So I was like, oh, I'll do it. I don't mind. I'll learn that. So yeah, so I've kind of gone. So I recently did my marketing cloud account engagement specialist certificate.
Yeah.
I passed that just at the beginning of the year. So yeah, so most of my customers are a mix of like sales service and Pardot. So I've been building engagement journeys today. I've been doing segmentation lists. So lots of different things, really.
The marketing side, that's awesome.
Yeah.
No,
And
fantastic.
marketing was nothing, I had no experience in that. So it took a while to get my head around. One of my customers does like white papers and things like that. So it wasn't necessarily upskilling in the Salesforce side of it. It was like more of the marketing language and being confident going into meetings, kind of understanding what their marketing team were talking about. So it was really interesting. So yeah, so that's what I've kind of the types of customers that I'm responsible for at the minute are generally sales, service, and Pardot.
Amazing. I love that. And it's great. So you've followed that line of carving out a niche. Where do you see yourself going then? Have you got ambitions as to what next?
And do you know what? I'm actually okay for the time being. Like I've come from a career where I was a lot. It took a lot out of me in education in terms of like managing people, managing children, managing Ofsted, managing all of that. It
Yeah,
came with a lot.
I can imagine, yeah.
So I feel like at the minute like my work-life balance is in a really, really great place, and my mental health is in a really great place because I'm enjoying what I'm doing, and I am feeling like I'm very confident every day. I'm not getting that kind of Sunday night work like anxiety about going into work the next day. I'm happy going in. So at the minute I'm doing well. I'm confident. I'm not going to take too much on.
Okay.
I think maybe potentially learning another cloud. So a couple of my customers are in education. Education is something that is my background.
Yeah.
So looking to maybe look at something like education cloud would be really interesting, and kind of seeing how that fits into it. So kind of maybe looking at more cloud-based niches. And because as I say, I come from an education background, so I feel like one of my customers is part of a school, and I feel like I really understand their business and I can really help them with their needs because I understand it. I get it from
Yeah, definitely.
my previous like life experience, really. So yeah, maybe just having a little look at some different clouds. The great thing about working for a consultancy company is that we don't necessarily have any. We kind of will look at any cloud. So if we have a customer that comes in looking at data cloud or Marketing Cloud or anything like that, we quite a lot of our projects have got field service lightning and things like that in it. So that's what I've really enjoyed about the consultancy is that it's very varied in terms of what the work that comes in.
That's great. And is it completely remote, Kate?
Yes,
Yes, you
I'm
do
fully
both.
right. My
Oh.
husband is the only person generally that I talk to in the day. He loves it.
And has that been for the last 3 years in both consultancies? You've been able to get that flexibility.
Yeah, fully remote. Yeah, and I work around school hours as well. So we have core hours that we need to be online between kind of 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. But so Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I start early and finish just so I can get in time to do the school run, to pick up my son from school. So yeah, so we're really flexible. Like we've got sports day next week. Like that's fine as long as I make my hour up kind of somewhere else for going to sports day. Like our company are really great in being like flexible like that.
Oh, that's really good. And is it full time or part time for you?
Yeah, so I'm full time. Yeah, I work full time.
Well,
Like,
with the cost these days, it's
yeah,
yeah, I completely resonate with that one. But the flexibility that you've got with the flexible hours obviously allows you to still provide for your family, and it's great to hear. I think people wouldn't worry about a consultancy sometimes as, it's going to be more vigorous from that point of view. But I speak to a lot of our super mums and dads that have gone into consultancies, and it's about finding the right consultancy that's got the right culture and
yeah,
support. There will be ones out there for sure that operate differently. And that's fine if they're looking for a certain culture and a certain way. Everybody will have their own, but there are definitely Salesforce consultancies like yours that offer that
yeah. And
flexibility.
I think
We value you.
yeah, for sure. And I think because we are fully remote, it does give you. So one of the things, it's especially with my previous employer, he understood that we were working remotely. Sometimes I'm lucky, my husband's here, so I have someone to talk to during the day. Obviously, I've got my work colleagues that I can call on as well. If I need, like I had a little huddle this morning with one of my colleagues for a cup of tea and a biscuit at like 10:30.
No.
So we have got that support, but my old boss was really kind of proactive in terms of don't be alone. Like if you want to take an extra hour and go out for lunch to see your friends, do it because that's important to your mental health. Don't sit
Yeah.
at working on your own and kind of be consumed by that. If you want to go for lunch for an hour with your friends, don't worry about coming back. Like I appreciate you will make up that time later, but actually what might be important is just getting out and seeing people. So it is
I love that.
hard to make that balance, like going from education where I had to be there all the time and
Mhm.
in ratio and doing all those things to actually being trusted as an adult that I am going to do my hours and I will get my hours done and I will put in the hard work and actually be a better person because my mental health is better because of it as well.
That's so nice to hear, because I think, as women with flexibility and with kids, working from home is certainly advantageous. But I equally, and as you've just mentioned, I think actually if you're in a new job and a new career and you're working at home all by yourself, you can get yourself in a little bit of a dizzy state about, am I good enough? Am I doing it? And I don't feel like I want to pick up the phone and ask for help. And I think people can struggle with that. So absolutely, being in an employment environment where, if you can be hybrid, or if you can pick up the phone, like have a huddle, like you say, with coffee and a biscuit, is, make sure that you do that to feel supported, because otherwise you can really end up winding yourself up.
Yeah. I think as well, sometimes, like for me, sometimes it's the simplest fix that I can't think of at the time. So I get really frustrated that I'm like, why can't I do this? So I'm like, right, I just need to, I've got a dog. So my go-to is, right, I'm just going to take the dog out. I'm just going to walk around the block. I'm going to take the dog out. I'm just going to get away from this desk because this problem has been evading me for however long now. And I just think, right, I'm going to step away from it and then I'll come back to it, have a walk, have a drink, not an alcoholic drink, a cup of tea. Um, but yeah, just step away from the computer and then come back to it with fresh eyes. And the amount of times I've sat down and looked at it and gone, oh, I forgot to tick a checkbox, or I've put the wrong field name in, or I've just done something like it's the smallest mistake sometimes within Salesforce. And you're thinking, why is this not working? And it's such a small thing that you've just missed. So being able to actually just step away and go, I need to have a break from this right now, and I'll come back to it in a minute with fresh eyes is does
Yeah.
a wonder of good.
And it's such important tips that we can share with people who are starting out, because I remember, you know, I was started out by myself. I didn't really know anybody, hence obviously why the Supermums community grew. But, you know, I'd sit there for hours trying to figure something out sometimes. And what's really nice within the Supermums alumni community, and, you know, you've got your husband at home, right? It's the same with them, is they're posting things out in the alumni chat. You know, can somebody help me with this? Or has somebody used this before? I'm stuck with this. What would you do? And people get back to them pretty much straight away.
Yeah.
On a solution. And I always really advocate for that. You know, use your community, you know, use the people around you. Even people have kept their friendships with their mentors,
Yeah.
you know, quite a long, you know, much longer than the 6 months, because they use them to bounce off now and again.
Yeah.
And you know, you're not alone. I think that's one of the biggest things is, you know, don't feel alone. But also going back to the mental health thing is like sometimes you need to step away from your computer or ask for help, right?
Yeah, I think one of the things I've heard before is it takes a village. Like it takes a village of people to come together to support you. So like you say, surround yourself with people either in like the Salesforce Supermums or on LinkedIn. Find some, like there's some really good user groups as well that meet up in person. So there's loads and loads. The great thing about Salesforce is that it's that culture of Ohana, it's that culture of giving back. It's the foundation of Salesforce. Everybody comes into it wanting to kind of, we came in with a mentor that helped us. We want to give that back and help as well. So I think, yeah, I think it's just a really great culture in terms of not just from a Supermum's perspective, but it also comes, like you say, from like the mentors, from everybody kind of wanting to give back and help.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm so glad you joined the family, Kate. Thank you so much for sharing everything today. You've been very open, and I'm just always so delighted and feel like that proud parent to see where you've got to now and what you're doing, and that it's ticking all your boxes, because that's what we want. Absolutely. And the fact that you've got a family around you, like, you know, your partner and your friend. So that's absolutely lovely. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I hope that's inspired all of you that have listened to Kate's story. Obviously, you can read through, connect with her on LinkedIn. And we'd love to welcome you on the course if you want to do it too. So thank you, Kate.
Thank you.